The Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. D.K. Shivakumar, has now reacted to this entire controversy. He said, I do not want to comment on the row. These are all policy matters. That's what the Deputy Chief Minister has said.
Sir, Amnesty International has asked Karnataka government to go ahead and revoke Hijab ban in education.
I don't want to comment. I don't want to comment on that. That is all policy matters.
Well, Neha Ebele joins us for more on this. Neha, you spoke to Mr. Priyank Kharge. He said that all regressive decisions taken by the previous government, be it the anti-cow slaughter bill or for that matter the anti-conversion law and also the hijab ban, will be reviewed. However, mixed reactions coming from rest of the cabinet members. D.K. Shivakumar choosing to be evasive when specifically asked a question. What's the thinking in the current Karnataka government over the issue on hijab specifically?
Well, Siddharth, for now, what we do know is that the Karnataka Congress, of course, would be looking at all of these laws that, they have termed as regressive, be it the anti-conversion bill, the anti-cow slaughter bill, or even, for that matter, the hijab ban. Now, Mr. Priyank Kharge's statement, of course, comes in light of a demand over here by the Amnesty International and NGO over there, stating that, they must, in fact, revoke the hijab ban. However, one thing, of course, Siddharth, that really needs to be looked at right now is that the matter currently is sub judice. It lies before a larger bench over here of the Supreme Court, and it's only possibly once that ruling comes through that the government, of course, would be in a position to maybe act on this. Now, as far as the cow slaughter and the anti-conversion, of course, bills are concerned, we'll really have to wait and see whether the government over here, goes on to roll that back, or whether, of course, some sort of action over here possibly would be taken that was against what the BJP government had done. But Mr. D.K. Shivakumar, of course, over there, when we posed this question to him,
yes,
going on to very clearly say that it's a policy reform that he wouldn't really like to comment on. We'll have to wait and see, really, of course, what the Congress government in the state of Karnataka has planned right now as far as these issues are concerned.
Well, Neha, stay with us because the former Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Hijab Bommai, has also reacted on this, and he's basically said that this is within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court as we speak, because there's a larger bench that's examining the matter, and that the current government should not roll it back. Let's listen to what Mr. Bommai said.
The matter is in the Supreme Court, and I don't think any prudent government will roll back when the matter is in the Supreme Court. And if still they want to roll back, then Supreme Court will interfere. Not only Supreme Court interfere, it has got its own repercussions. I think Chief Minister is aware of it, and he will take very justful decision.
So you think?
And they should not do anything in the haste.
So, Neha, just to bring our viewers up to speed with the status of the hijab ban, the Karnataka High Court has actually upheld the decision on the part of the Bommai government, and thereafter, once the matter went to the Supreme Court, the two-judge Supreme Court bench delivered a split verdict on the matter. So, therefore, there was a status quo after that decision. Now, of course, a larger bench is examining this issue. What's really prompting the likes of Mr. Priyank Kharge to be making these kind of statements? Is it the fact that a large section of the Muslim community actually voted for the Congress this election?
Well, Siddharth, we must really go back to when this, order was actually passed by the Karnataka government. They at the time gone on to say that all religious symbols will be banned from educational institutions under the government's jurisdiction. Having said that, of course, the matter was later referred, to the High Court. The High Court upheld it. We saw it going to the Supreme Court. There was a split verdict, and now it lies in front of the larger bench of the Supreme Court. Now, even if we are to, of course, assume right now that the Congress would like to roll back this order, would like to review this decision, the fact is that it would have to go through a legal route. And with that being said, of course, it's important because back then, when this entire issue had blown out of proportion in the state of Karnataka, we saw how the Congress party, had remained mum then. Of course, the BJP had lashed out at the Congress then, saying that they're not really, of course, speaking about this at the moment. But now, for the Congress party to be coming forward and saying that they would be looking to review this, whether they're willing to, of course, take the legal route over there, approach the Supreme Court now, because the matter is still in, front of the larger bench of the Supreme Court. All of this is something that we'll really have to wait and see. But ahead of the, 2024 elections now, it sure seems like the Congress party, is going to be reviewing all of these decisions of the government and how this pans out on ground is something that we'll have to wait and see.
And Neha, when Siddaramaiah was specifically asked a question about the anti-cow slaughter laws and the anti-conversion laws in one of the interviews that he gave before he became Chief Minister, he did say we'll review them. He didn't specifically talk about the hijab. What's the thinking within the current Karnataka government, the other cabinet ministerial colleagues of Mr. Priyank Kharge on this specific matter? Are they cautious or would they be forthcoming and backing Mr. Kharge on this?
Well, of course, Siddharth, we did try speaking with a few other senior Congress leaders as well. And, for the moment, of course, it sure seems like there isn't, any uniformity. There isn't any, acceptance, of course, as far as the entire party is concerned. We are getting divided responses over here. You heard from Mr. D.K. Shivakumar saying it's a policy reform. They're not going to comment on it at the moment. The Chief Minister there, Siddaramaiah, in fact, refusing to, of course, comment on it entirely. We'll really have to wait and see, because what we also right now know is that, for any of these policy reforms, of course, to be undertaken, especially as far as the hijab ban in particular is concerned, it would have to be through a legal route. And with, of course, the rest of the cabinet ministers also likely to be sworn in shortly, possibly by the end of this week, even maybe, we'll have to wait and see unanimously if the Congress agrees on this or not, because imperative to mention, of course, that's right now that the Congress party would not like to upset any community.
That's correct.
Was the consolidated vote share of, the Lingayats, a part of the Wakaligas, the Muslims, the SC, STs as well. Any decision they take right now is going to have a massive, repercussion on all the communities at large. How the Congress deals with this, well, we'll find out in the next, of course, in the upcoming days.
And Neha, isn't it true that while the Congress party as a whole may not have really brought up the hijab as an election issue in the build-up to the Karnataka polls, there were certain Congress candidates that definitely did. For example, Kanis Fatima, who won the North Gulbarga seat, did in fact make this a poll issue in her constituency, and she won by a margin of almost 6,000 votes. So certain individual Congress candidates did make this an issue in the build-up to the elections.
Well, that's right. So that, of course, while on the whole, we did ask Congress leaders, even during the time of the order being brought in, when you had the education minister from the BJP as well, BC Nagesh, of course, commenting on this aggressively. We saw the Congress, not really, of course, taking up this issue, keeping the heat and the focus on developmental issues as they claimed. However, even as this time around, the Congress party has been trying to focus on developmental issues. It seems like currently, of course, the focus, of course, has come back on this. And the reason we say this is because, it wasn't us really who raked this up, but the Congress party themselves going on to say that, they are going to be, of course, reviewing all of the decisions of the previous BJP government. Now, while this has been a practice, of course, in the past as well, that when a new government takes over, they tend to review the decisions of the previous government. This in particular is something, that was massive, that had global implications as well.
Yes.
It had become a global issue. Now with the matter also reaching the Supreme Court, we'll really have to wait and see if these are just statements that are being made, or if the Congress party is going to seriously be championing this, of course, and taking it up legally.
Okay, many thanks, Neha, for filling us in with all those details. Priyank Kharge making a very significant statement in his interview to Neha Hebale, claiming that the decision on the hijab taken by the previous government would also be reviewed. We'll turn our attention now to infighting within the ranks of the Karnataka Congress, because D.K. Suresh, the brother of D.K. Shivakumar, has actually criticized Mr. M.B. Patil, speaking to him and asking him to measure his words when he makes statements in the public. Some MLAs around him were also unhappy in the manner in which Mr. D.K. Suresh had spoken to Mr. M.B. Patil. Mr. M.B. Patil, of course, a well-known Lingayat figure within the Congress party. When specifically asked about this, Mr. Patil did not respond. He said that we will talk later, and then he left.
What about cabinet expansion, sir?
You ask the Chief Minister.
Sir, was it discussed today, sir, in the cabinet expansion?
Cabinet, new MLAs are elected. How should they function? They should be raising issues. They should conduct themselves, be active, visit the constituencies, take people's issues. Siddaramaiah ji guided about them. What is the financial position? What are the procedures? Everything was discussed to educate the newly elected MLAs, and also some cautioning this one for all the MLAs, that how the finances are there, how should we move on, what is the state share, what is the central share, what is the tax collected here, how much goes to the central, what should we expect from the central.
ನೋಡಪ್ಪ 10 ವರ್ಷ ಇರಲಿ, ಯಾರು ಬೇಡ ಅಂದವರು. ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯನವರು ಹಿಂದೆನೂ 5 ವರ್ಷ ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಈಗ ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಮುಂದೆ 5 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೂ ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿ ಆಗಲಿ. ಅಥವಾ MB ಪಾಟೀಲ್ ಆಗೋದಿದ್ರು ಸಂತೋಷ. ಬೇಡ ಅಂದವ್ರು ಯಾರು? ಜನ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಪಕ್ಷ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು.
Well, let's go back to Neha once again. Neha, this spat is of course around whether or not there's any consensus on the issue of a rotating chief ministership within the Karnataka Congress, whether or not DK Shivakumar is expected to take over as chief minister after Mr. Siddaramaiah completes about 2.5 years of his tenure. There's no official statement on that forthcoming, but clearly a divide that we're seeing currently in the Congress about that.
Well, that's right, Siddharth. You know, we posed this question there to Mr. DK Shivakumar about the spat between Mr. DK Suresh and MB Patil, and he went on to very clearly say that, you know, there's no spat over here. All decisions that have been taken by the High Command, by Mr. Randeep Singh Surjewala, Mallikarjun Kharge, KC Venugopal, is something that would have to be abided by all of the party leaders. So, while he's, of course, you know, gone on to completely sideline this issue and say that there's no actual spat over there between the two leaders, we've seen that, you know, even prior to the elections, it was Mr. Siddaramaiah who had to intervene when, you know, MB Patil had made a few statements against Mr. DK Shivakumar. It was after Siddaramaiah's intervention that we saw both MB Patil as well as DK Shivakumar, you know, of course, getting together there. This was around the time of the Bharat Jodo Yatra and a little later as well. So having said that, you know, of course, one thing is quite certain, Siddharth, is that this that we're seeing between Mr. MB Patil and DK Shivakumar's family goes back to quite some time now. And again, you know, of course, in light of the recent statements that Mr. MB Patil had made, that there's no plan of power sharing, Mr. DK Suresh, of course, you know, going on to very casually bring it up and say that, you know, Mr. MB Patil should be careful and he should, of course, you know, really, of course, exercise his tongue cautiously as far as speaking about Mr. DK Shivakumar is concerned. We'll really have to wait and see, Siddharth, because, you know, this comes on a day when we're already seeing the two senior leaders, DK Shivakumar and Siddaramaiah, traveling to Delhi as well. They're likely to be expanding their cabinet. There's been a lot of jostling. There's been a lot of lobbying as well by all of the senior leaders for a ministerial berth. Is this, of course, you know, going to end here, or is this going to get more ugly? Well, that's something that, you know, we'll find out in the coming days.